The new SSR Holden has had his skills revealed. Is he overpowered? Our mission today really is to break down Holden's whole kit, get a handle on his core mechanics, touch on Hoyan's big features too, just for that comparison, and then hopefully help you figure out which one might be the right choice.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, let's start with Holden himself. What's the top sign summary?
All right, so Holden. He's presented as a defense-based bruiser. Red element, base speed is 110. So, not exactly lightning fast, but clearly built to be tough, right? And dish out damage based on that tankiness. His whole kit seems built around, like, revenge attacks and control effects.
Defense, scaling, and counterattacks. Okay, yeah, that definitely points towards wanting to build him tanky. Let's dive into that first skill, punishment.
Right, punishment. That's his basic attack. Single target, hits 3 times, and the damage for each of those hits scales off his defense 110% of his defense per hit, specifically.
Yeah, there's a debuff too, defense down chance.
Yeah, each hit can inflict defense down, but honestly, the chance starts pretty low, and even maxed out, it only hits 20%. And maybe more importantly, that defense down, it only lasts for 1 turn.
Just 1 turn. And only 20% max chance. Does that defense down even matter much then? Or is the real power of skill 1 somewhere else?
You absolutely hit the nail on the head there. The defense down feels almost like a little bonus, nothing more. The real reason S1 is important for him, the real winner, is the passive baked into it called execution mode.
Ah, okay, the passive hidden in the S1 description. What's the deal with that?
So execution mode kicks in right at the start of the battle. For every 500 defense Holden has, he just passively gains an extra 10% counterattack rate and a 5% final damage boost.
Ooh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So stacking defense isn't just for his skill damage or staying alive. It directly fuels his counterattacks and boosts all his damage output. That really leans into that revenge idea and makes counter gear, like Bramble, seem almost tailor-made for him.
Exactly. More defense means more counters, more consistent damage when he gets hit, and it juices up the damage on all his skills. It's a really neat defensive-offensive feedback loop.
Right, got it. Okay, let's move on to skill 2, strike through. Now this is the one where I keep hearing that word, broken.
Yeah, this is the one. S2 is getting called his signature move, a devastating strike. Insanely good, and yeah, people are definitely saying broken in PvP. It's single target, hits for massive defense-based damage. We're talking 480% of his defense to 1 poor enemy.
480% defense scaling is huge damage, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But is that why it's called broken? Or is there more to it?
Oh, there's definitely more. The damage is almost just like the cherry on top. The really mind-blowing part is the effect. When you skill it up to level 5, it has a 100% chance to completely push back the target's turn meter by 100% and maximize all their skill cooldown.
Oh, okay, hang on. Not just delay their turn, but reset their turn meter and put their skills on full cooldown. That's much, much stronger than just the silence, because you basically just delete that enemy character from the meaningful part of the fight for several turns, right? They're just sitting there auto-attacking.
Precisely. It completely bypasses the limitations of silence because it forces the cooldown reset. They can't use their big skills anytime soon. It's pretty much unparalleled single target lockdown. But, and this is important, you have to invest those skill ups into S2, get it to level 5, to guarantee that 100% effect.
Okay, so mandatory investment for the main event. Gotcha. Any PvE use cases for this, you think?
Yeah.
Outside of just nuking something?
Potentially, yeah. Maybe in certain boss fights. If you pair him with a speed booster, get him to go early, you could theoretically use strike through to reset the boss's big moves and turn meter. Buy your team a crucial window, you know.
That's a cool thought. Add some versatility. And I think I saw some chatter about this. Could it ignore resistance? Is that a thing?
Yeah, that's the other big speculation point. Because the description flat out says 100% chance at max level. Some are wondering if that means it just bypasses effect resistance checks entirely. Imagine just neutralizing their key threat, even if they built tons of resistance. No, obviously that's just theory crafting until we see it live, right? So grain of salt. But it just highlights how potentially game-breaking this skill really could be.
Yeah, if that's true. Wow. Okay, all right, moving on to his ultimate skill 3, Steadfast Conviction.
Steadfast Conviction, his ult. This one's an AoE, hits all enemies twice. Each hit deals 180% of his defense. And besides the damage, each hit also has a chance, it starts at 50% base, to dispel 1 buff from each enemy hit and slap a 2-turn attack down and resistance down on them.
And crits double the effect chance here, right?
That's the key part, yeah. If Holden crits with his ultimate, that chance to dispel, apply attack down, and resistance down jumps to 100% for each enemy hit. So building crit rate suddenly becomes really important if you want this ult to reliably land its effects.
Okay, so it's a team-wide strip plus some really useful debuffs.
Exactly. That AoE attack down can seriously blunt the enemy team's damage, help your team survive. And resistance down is always nice, makes them softer targets for everyone else's debuffs or control. It's good utility packed in there.
How does the dispel compare to, say, dedicated dispellers? Like someone with a passive strip?
Well, it's great for hitting everyone at once, especially if the enemy team buffs up right at the start, like maybe fighting an Aurora or Terramaton. But yeah, because it's tied to his ult, which has a cooldown, it's not going to give you that constant turn after turn buff removal you'd get from like a Heinrich passive.
Right. Makes sense. You wouldn't bring him just for the dispel, but it's a really strong secondary effect on his ultimate. What's the cooldown look like?
Fully skilled up, it's 4 turns. which, yeah, feels maybe a little long if you're relying on it as your main dispel. But again, it does come with solid damage and those debuffs too.
And wasn't there some hope about autoplay prioritizing this, using it early?
Yeah, that's the hope. Ideally, the AI uses this first thing to get those debuffs out and maybe strip some initial buffs. That would be the best case scenario for auto battles.
Okay, so let's pull this all together for Holden. Defense Bruiser, loves to counterattack because of his passive, has this arguably game-breaking S2 for single-target lockdown, and an AoE ult that strips and debuffs everyone, especially if he crits. Sounds like a stacked kit. But what's the catch? How hard is it to actually make him work well?
Yeah, here it is. This came up again and again. Holden is described as being very stat hungry, like really needing high investment to actually hit his potential.
Okay, why? What stats are we talking about here that makes him so hungry?
Well, obviously defense. Everything scales off it, his damage, his passive counter rate, survivability. But then to land the defense down on S1, and more importantly, the dispel, attack down, and resistance down on S3, he needs accuracy. And like we just said, to get that 100% chance on the S3 effects, he needs crit rate.
Hold on. Defense, accuracy, and crit rate. All at the same time. Trying to get good rolls on all three of those on gear sounds painful. Is that even realistic for most players outside the absolute top tier? Won't you always be sacrificing one for the others?
That's exactly the challenge. It's a huge hurdle. You are going to have to make compromises somewhere. Do you lower his defense a bit to get enough accuracy? Do you maybe sacrifice accuracy to push crit rate for the ult consistency? It's a really awkward balancing act. And that's why the general feeling is he'll really come alive with endgame gear, maybe maxed artifacts, full skill ups. But early or mid game, he might feel kind of average, maybe even underwhelming, unless you funnel some seriously good specific gear onto him.
So super high ceiling, but you need top-notch gear to even reach the first floor potentially. If someone does decide to go for it, where should the skill up priority be?
Looking at the impact, skill 3 is important for the cooldown reduction and maybe bumping that base effect chance, although the crit interaction is huge there. But really, it seems like skill 2 is the absolute must. Getting that S2 to level 5 for the guaranteed 100% turn meter and cooldown reset, that feels non-negotiable for what makes him special. S1 skill ups seem like the lowest priority by far.
Okay, great breakdown of Holden. So if you need that pinpoint control, the AoE debuffs, you like the tanky counter style, and you feel confident you have the gear or are willing to farm for those specific stats, defense, accuracy, crit rate, Holden looks amazing.
Right.
But if you're maybe more focused on PvP, or you love the idea of a character who can just completely flip a bad situation, survive anything, bring your team back, and shut down enemy revives, and maybe you're a bit worried about Holden's gear demands, Hoyan seems incredibly strong.
Exactly. It really comes down to your team's gaps, your available gear, and honestly just which character's broken mechanic sounds more fun or useful for you.
Well, this has been